The first item on the agenda is public speak. So, Meth?
I'm the liaison, but I'm going to use public speak because I just want to tell you what went on at the select board meeting last night, and it's not on your agenda, so I don't know that it's a discussion that can be had or not. But the select board chose and approved to postpone the recommendations that have been made for staffing and other things, and instead start off with hiring an outside consultant to do a organizational study, and at the same time, since we had a position that had already been approved and in last year's budget, and because of that is available immediately rather than waiting for July, to use that as a way to hire somebody for programming for the summer, and I think that's I think the feeling was that there's no point in making any decisions about permanent hires or permanent changes until we get the study done. So I don't know exactly how much we can talk about it, but that's the information that I wanted to give you.
Okay, thank you. So I don't know if I'm looking at you right now, but thank you. And I guess we'll just hear more as information.
Tracy, if I could just add one other thing. John Kelly has been working with Mike Ford, and I think he has found a way on the revolving fund to do it in such a way that it carries through the fiscal year without having to do the refund, putting money back into the general fund. But more on that later. I don't have that for certain.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Anyone else for public speak out there? Guess not. Okay, next order of business is to approve the minutes for February 17th.
Motion to approve the minutes for February 17th.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Chad. Any discussion?
I have to leave here at 6:45 for the Finance Committee meeting,
Okay,
so I'll watch the rest of the meeting.
Oh, for
finish
tonight's
the notes for the minutes, just so you know. I won't
Terrific.
get someone else.
thank you, Joan.
Okay.
Okay, all in favor of approving the February minutes?
Right.
Aye. Okay, terrific. And then Recreation Director's report. Alan?
Sure. So this coming spring, these are the scheduled events that are going on. We have junior tennis starting in April 28th, April 25th. We'll probably run 2 separate sessions for that, one at 2:30 and one at 3:30. We have middle school tennis instruction starting on April 26th. We have a spring track and field program in which we're working to develop some track and field interest, running through some basic instruction for kids in 4 to 6 skill range. Girls softball is registering now. It'll start in April with practices, games in May. We have a April vacation sports camp on April 19, 20, and 21 from 9:30 to 11 for elementary grades 4 through 6, in which we'll do indoor and outdoor sports activities. We have an after-school soccer program for grades 3 through 5 at OES, starting the Thursday after April vacation. For adults, we will be starting with adult pickleball. We have 3 separate weeks of sessions, May 9th through the 11th, May 23rd through the 25th, June 13th through the 15th. We have adult tennis, 2 separate sessions of adult instruction. The first session is April 9th. It runs through May 14th. It's a Saturday morning. And the second session is April 21st through June 25th. The adult fitness series, we continue to have our fitness early bird program. Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 7:30 to 8:30 a.m. We're doing a Burdenko fitness training, which is basically a fitness program for individuals, adults of all ages, starting on April the 7th. And we are doing another Running 101, which is basically a program to help people that just want to begin to run and learn some of the fundamentals and stretches, and having a little bit of a running course developed. We have a fun day. Family Fun Day is June 4th. It'll be from 9 to 1 at the elementary school, in which we will have some activities. We'll have yoga class, fitness class, we'll have some volleyball set up, we'll have some basketball, we'll have some soccer clinics going on for kids, we'll have cornhole, and a few other different activities for people to just come by and participate in an activity and have a good time. This year that is just finished, as far as winter activities, we had the February fitness class. There were 16 individuals in that class. It was misspoken by somebody here that there were only 6. There were 16 in that February early bird fitness. We had a K-2 basketball program that met on Saturday mornings. There were 25 participants signed up in that program. February ice skating, which was an hour. We had 43 participants in that. In the youth basketball program for grades 3 and 4, we had 23 participants. In the Saturday soccer program, we had in grades 3 through 5, we had 8 participants. In the Saturday soccer program at OES for grades K through 2, we had 18 participants. In the current March early bird fitness program, the Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we have 17 participants. In grades 5 and 6 basketball, boys and girls, we had 35 participants. In the January ice skating event that we had on a Saturday evening, January the 18th at Charles Moore Arena, we had 54 participants. And the February sports camp that we ran at OES during February school vacation, we had a total of 10 participants, 5 in the younger group and 5 in the older group.
Are the pickleball courts open? I just don't drive by there. Are
Yeah.
they playing now? I mean,
Yeah, it's
and
been
the nets,
kind
well,
of sparse with the weather, but yeah.
oh, good.
Great. It would be, those numbers are really helpful. Could we get those next month in the report? Because I think it's a little easier, at least for me to process if it's in writing than hearing the numbers. Is that a possibility?
It's possible. I don't think they'll change because most of these are over.
I just mean, going forward.
I'll do what I
if
can.
Yeah, if the registration numbers, that could be great. Any questions on the Recreation Director's report? Go ahead.
Question. Just in the report that we received, I didn't actually see a copy of the revolving fund. I only saw the expenses. Can you tell us what the balance is in the
I
revolving
cannot
fund?
because what I send you is what I get from the town accountant's office.
Okay.
I have not received an updated revolving fund as of right now for the revolving fund, so that's why it's not included.
Okay.
I had a question.
Anne's got something.
Oh, all right. Ann, hit it and then I'll go.
The track and field that you mentioned, Alan, is that the javelin and shot put that you sent the email about? And could
Well,
you
yeah,
talk
I mean,
a little bit about that?
it's a modified track and field. I mean, we don't take younger kids and have them throw a javelin. We take younger kids and we teach them how to throw a javelin using a water noodle, the long things that you throw in the pool that float. So it is javelin, but we're teaching it at a modified direction. We're using other equipment, so we're not throwing a javelin. We're not throwing a shot put. We're using a lighter ball, but going through the techniques.
And I know you were working on looking for volunteers to help. How'd that go?
Adult volunteers, yes, I have 3 right now that have training, that know what they're doing, that are, they're a certified runner or ran in college, and they, they're like a youth coach, like I have in basketball and in softball and in other activities. Yes, but I have a couple. We had our meeting last night, by the way, to coordinate it with them.
Is that coordinated with the middle school
No,
track
it's not.
program? Okay. I was wondering on there's tennis for elementary school that starts at 2:15. Are those kids getting dismissed from school to your program?
No, they get out at 2, so they walk over. They get out at 2.
But can they just walk over? Or do they need, is that gap of 15 minutes, are they under your care?
Yeah, oh, no,
during
we're
those
there,
15?
yeah. The
so
lesson
you're
doesn't
dismissed-
start till 2:15, yeah, because of the time to walk over, get settled, get Brendan, and get everybody organized.
I'm just saying, are you taking them
Yes.
from when
We
they
do.
leave the school building, you're walking them over? to
We
the
do.
tennis court? Okay, that's terrific. I was just thinking if parents are trying to squeeze and pick up and everything in those 15 minutes, it could be hard. I think that's a really nice time of day to run programming for elementary school, to give parents that extra hour and 15 minutes on the school day. That's a tough time of day. I wanted to, did you have a chance to reach out to Knucklebones about us?
Just some email correspondence with Mitch.
Okay, so.
Nothing's settled, nothing is, I'll make that determination later, whether I'm going to use them or not use them, or go to somebody else.
Okay. Are there other vendors that do that sort of programming?
There's a few things around, yeah.
Okay. We discussed at the last meeting surveys, and then there was some discussion of the committee doing our own survey, but also, the point was made that the sort of consistent feedback that we'd been getting from participant surveys that we could potentially get is the quality of that is different than what we would get from a big survey. So, I have a little bit of concern about doing a big recreation advisory committee survey, because there's, the Governor Prince just did a survey, Snow Library did, Community Center will. Wonder how many surveys people are going to respond to. I emailed you after the last meeting and just asked again if you were working with Kyle, if there was still, the possibility of having 3 questions, like would you recommend this program to a friend? Would you participate again? And do you have any suggestions for things that we could do to improve the programming? Is a survey like that something that could be?
Who do you want to tackle that, Kyle?
I mean, I can certainly talk about the conversations I've had with Alan about
Okay.
the surveys. I think it'd be helpful to understand from the committee, because the way I look at it, right, I think the committee and the department might have 2 different objectives in surveying. And I think Alan should be in charge of the the objective from the department's perspective on exit surveys. I know that he explained to me that he sat down with Tom and they talked about this, and he ran this idea by me, which I thought was probably a pretty decent idea. But as opposed to emailing surveys out and hoping to get some responses, is to do kind of almost like focus groups, is what he kind of explained it. Grab a couple of involved parents that show up at, various activities, whether it's, in the K through 2 range or the 3 through 5 range, and also do constructive feedback sessions with the volunteer coaches, to kind of get that not only community connection with the department and the participants, but also maybe have a little bit more, I think, constructive feedback to figure out how the parents are looking at this, because you might send a survey to a parent that just drops off and leaves.
Right.
And they don't actually watch what's happening. Whereas there are a number of parents, at least in my kids' age range, that are there watching everything that's happening. And I thought that was a really, really great idea, because not only does it connect the department with the community, but I think it gets the parents engaged in what their kids are participating in. And then from a volunteer staff or volunteer coaching perspective, I think that's really going to give a different perspective to Alan as to what could help out, as opposed to what we've been getting from his constructive surveys. I think that in talking with Alan, it would be helpful for the committee to kind of understand what our purpose is in doing exit surveys for all the programs. I think I know that one of the things we've looked at for surveying is to try to direct us or focus us on what we should be looking towards doing. That, to me, is probably more of like a biannual kind of survey or maybe a quarterly type of survey as opposed to an exit from every program. Because I don't know that it's not going to make a lot of sense from an exit from a K through 12 soccer program to start asking about a bunch of like, what would you like to do or that sort of thing. And that's where I was talking with Alan in terms of exit surveys. I think it's probably going to be more beneficial to sit down and chat with the folks that he's identified that are there watching and participating. And I think it also probably helps identify potential volunteers for coaching in the future for other age ranges. But it would be helpful to understand what are the two objectives for what is the committee looking for from exit surveys? And then I know what the department's looking for because they put together their exit surveys and it was, we're putting a safe program on, your kid have fun, and does the time frame work? Basically, we're like the three kind of major objectives and there might be a couple more.
Yeah, just like basically, would you recommend this to someone else? Would you do it again or a similar program in the future?
But I don't want to get in the way of Alan's kind of decision on how he wants to look at exit surveys, because I think that what he proposes is a lot better than email, click a couple buttons kind of survey. But,
Yeah, I think I think it sounds like we're on similar pages of wanting open-ended feedback and not just yes or no responses, right?
yeah, I think that's what you're going to get from a focus type group, right? Like, I mean, just from I have a very limited perspective. I was telling Alan this. We've got one kid that's just started going through things. I have no complaints about the programs that she's in. And, yeah, I mean, yeah, sure, pie in the sky, I could say we would like more programming or these other things. But to get that connection with maybe some other parents that can say, I don't know, maybe a parent would be like, I'd like to see more, not boys versus girls, mix them all up, or maybe we could work on this kind of I don't know what a parent might say, but I think it would connect the department more closely than an emailed survey would.
Other thoughts, Joan?
I think it's a great idea, especially if you make it open to any parent.
Right.
Not just pick.
Well, the plan I'm going to do is this, and we discussed this, is let's use an example of a program Kyle's children were in. And that was youth basketball this winter on Saturday morning. So I can identify probably 4 people that are in there every Saturday morning, bringing their child in and then having a seat and watching, or having a seat with another parent and just having a conversation or whatever. And then there are those parents who just come by and get the kid in the building, and then they're gone. They come back an hour later, so they never saw what went on. Is to identify a couple of people who are hands-on, see what's going on, and physically invite them to a session where I would conduct a meeting to address thoughts and ideas and suggestions for improving the program. But also, even though I've, quote, handpicked Kyle and somebody else, because I know they're physically there, is to send an email out to all the parents and say, we're having this meeting at 6 o'clock on this date. If you want to come by, please come by.
Right.
And the feeling is, if you're just happy with the program and whatnot, you're not going to show up. But and if you want to, that's fine. If you got a real complaint, you're going to probably come and show up.
Right.
But those are the people we want to see.
Great, Alan. I think
Okay.
it's better than a survey.
Absolutely. It might be nice to invite people because people are so busy, to either come to the meeting or respond to this email with any suggestions or ideas. Just because as
I think if you get-
as I
if you
peeled
give a
into the
chance
parking
for
lot
everybody to
tonight, it
respond,
does get busy.
Perfectly fine.
Yeah, but I think being as inclusive as possible, like the parent who is dropping off and picking up an hour later might also be really busy at 6 PM on Monday night, and you still want
I
that
think what
voice
it
to
does
be
though,
in.
right, is it invites the community to engage with the department.
Yes,
One
and that's
way or the
important.
other, which I think is going to be really beneficial to the department and the programs that are offered.
Yep.
I think it's great. I think it's better than the surveys
Yep.
at each end.
Yeah. So are you thinking like spring, maybe you'll get that?
Yeah, we can do that, because you're a couple of, like Evan, your child will be involved in softball, so, yeah.
And then you could just let us know at meetings, at the next, at the rec committee meeting following your session, how things went, what sort of feedback. Okay, terrific.
I have one question.
Yeah.
Alan, are you going to do it as a group for adults, like any adult that took a program? Or are you going to sort of skip the?
Why don't I try it and see how it goes, maybe get a small group, but I mean, and
a
again,
lot. That's why I
I can
was
say
saying
this,
maybe-
and I know people don't like it when I say this, but I can't bog down 25 hours a week on having meetings.
That's what I'm
I mean, I'll
saying.
do what I can, I'll pick out and choose and get, and a lot of the adult programs are the same people,
That's
like,
what I'm
for
saying.
instance, the Monday,
Yeah.
Wednesday, I'm not gonna do the same.
Well, is it also fair to say too that with the adult program, you have a little bit more time to engage with the actual adults? So they're going to give you feedback.
Yeah.
Like, hey, Burdenko, there's something wrong with the Burdenko program or the adult fitness.
Yeah.
They're going to come up and talk to you as
Right.
opposed to like a kid's program where the kid might not approach you. They might say something to their parent, but the parent might not approach
Right.
you.
Yeah, that's all I was saying, is I think you can streamline all the adult programs into one email or one
Yeah.
communication. You don't need to.
Sharon?
I'm just wondering, do we need to make a motion that we hope this happens for spring?
Sure. Do you want to make that motion?
I mean,
I don't know if I can word it.
I don't think
you
you
need a
need to
motion.
make a motion that,
we
hope
just-
No, Alan's going to.
Can I make a comment? This committee has to stop trying to micromanage the athletic, the recreation department by making motions that sort of, quote, hope that I do this and force me to do this, and if I don't do it, then we take it, you go to John Kelly or something like that. I mean,
Okay.
we're all adults.
Alan, if you
All
don't
right.
want us to make a motion and you say you've got it, you've got it. I think the committee is trying to find a balance
Right.
between making motions so
Right.
that things are in writing, because
Right.
you have referenced sometimes
Right.
in the past, you never took a motion on that.
Right.
And so that's where we are, is sort of wanting to
Right.
be really clear about our goals, but we certainly don't want to micromanage. So we'll take
Okay.
motions as needed, okay? Anything else for the Recreation Director's report? Okay. Will, and I apologize because I ran in late, so I haven't met you in person yet, so it's nice to see you. And I think you met everyone last time, or probably tonight, when I was throwing spaghetti into bowls and trying to run out the door. Will contacted me after the last meeting with some ideas about volunteers, and then put together a document that I posted. So did you want to quickly just walk us through your idea?
Yeah, I was looking at the letter and I realized that I hadn't finished the last sentence. So,
You get the gist.
yeah. So, I know, if you guys don't know, at the high school, there is a program called the National Honor Society where they take part in doing community service all throughout the Cape Cod area. And I thought that, since the budget is a little tight with the building project, and we're more in need for volunteers for these programs now than ever, I think it would be a good idea to maybe call up this program and see if some upperclassmen would like to help, because I think they're very capable, and especially if it's something like sports, if in a field that they're, knowledgeable in, I think that would be really good. Because I was talking to a few of my friends the other day, and they were saying how they went to the middle school and helped out the basketball program, and I thought, that's a good idea. We could ask them to supervise these things, and I think since they're almost adults, with an adult supervising, they could more than manage the program at task. So if the committee approves this idea, I can contact the leader of the National Honor Society and show them this letter and make a document with the itinerary at hand and see if there's any need for some volunteers along with the adult volunteers and see if they would like to do these programs in the spring and the summer.
Thank you. I'll jump in with the first comment, which is, the committee has talked about intergenerational programming, and while you're probably still the same generation as some of these younger kids, I think mixing ages is always really nice. My oldest son is a freshman in high school, and he's helped my husband coach a few times, and it's been really nice for everyone involved, but it even has extended to, my son is William too, and he helped out at the basketball vacation camp a few years in a row with the custodian at the elementary school. So when he was applying for a camp counselor job, the custodian was his reference. He didn't have any, that was his kids camp, his best go-to. So it's sort of mutually beneficial. And the last thing I was going to say is, especially when my kids were little, high school kids are such a big deal to them. So sort of the field hockey program that my daughter did, the high school team helped, and they would have followed them anywhere. So I think having a few high schoolers on hand for some of these programs could be really nice for everyone.
No, I think it's brilliant. I mean, it has a lot of common sense to it. Thank you. I mean, that's what it should be.
Right.
We're a community.
Yes.
And that's a very good opportunity for everybody.
Yeah. Anne? Oh, you're muted.
I congratulate you, Will, for this concept and your presentation. We all are responsible for being sensitive to the budget. And one of the resources Orleans has is human capital, and you've quite nicely demonstrated what a great resource the older students are to the rest of the kids. I'm going to kind of piggyback on how you presented this and say that the department and our committee should continue to be sensitive to budget pressures, which always are important, but looking at the news, understanding housing, the cost of food and gas, we as a community should get really good at taking advantage of the free labor, sweat equity, community resources that does not cost the recreation department money, but enhances recreation. And perhaps one of the parts of the job description, if there's more staff time, is coordination of volunteers, recruitment and coordination of volunteers to really maximize just this sort of thing, which is superb.
Joan?
I love this idea. I think it's great. I know that, I like what you said, Anne, about having, once there's more help for Alan, the coordination of volunteers, because that does take a lot of time. You have to be checked, and maybe some of the coaches, maybe there's some in this room, who say, hey, I can use someone right away. But I would also say Judy Wilson runs programs in the senior center, and that would be a great place to also offer some volunteer services, because they have a lot of seniors there with not a big budget either, and that to me is the ultimate in intergenerational. So I think it's fabulous.
I do like the idea, right? I mean, because rec is kind of acts sometimes as a feeder program for high school sports in a sense, right? And I know that you had mentioned, Alan, this you'd have to probably better explain it than I'm ever going to be able to, but there was a kind of a confluence of the high school basketball and was it the middle school or the elementary basketball? I don't know if Will's referencing, but where the teams kind of came and cheered.
Oh, yeah,
on
that was,
And your kids went to a high school game, right? Was that?
what happened was the high school, this is pre-COVID, the year of COVID, is that 2020 winter. The high school team, the High Nauset boys, invited all of the rec towns in the region to go to a game, and you wore your rec shirt, you get in for nothing. And all of the kids were allowed to go on the court during the introduction of the Nauset players and stay on the court with the Nauset players while they played the national anthem. And then, I don't know if I mentioned this, I think I did at the last meeting, but at a girls', or was it a boys'? I think it was a girls' rec basketball game this winter between Brewster and Eastham. I'm sorry, between Brewster and Orleans. When we got there, the Nauset High School girls were on the court with the Nauset Middle School girls, kind of sharing a practice, which is something that's done annually, I guess. And when that game was over, the coaches were there for the high school, all the Nauset girls came into the little gym at the middle school with the coaches, and they sat and watched the third and fourth grade game, which was kind of cool, and cheered and,
Yeah, I mean, I think trying to foster those types of, environments with, volunteer-type kids or kids that are already involved in athletics is super important and awesome. I think once we kind of get the department a little bit more hopefully filled out.
Right.
That we can really build upon some of the things. And as we come out of COVID too, we can maybe start capitalizing on something like that happened kind of organically in the past. But I think it's just really important, especially in small towns. Like, I mean, for the kids to all know each other throughout various grades and support each other in their sports endeavors is really important. So I appreciate you being here, Will, and expressing this willingness for kids that want to kind of be participating and encouraging sports and athleticism, because I think athleticism is really a backbone to a lot of, that being an adult and learning different skills.
Maybe, Alan, I have a question. The event that you talked about for June 4th, which is great, do you think that one of us could help organize some high school kids to
Sure.
help with that?
Yeah.
Because I bet some of us on this committee would volunteer to help organize some kids, and we could work with Will and figure out from you what you need
Yeah.
help with. Is it whatever that
Well,
costs?
setting up equipment,
Whatever that
guiding
tossing is.
people to stations, and certainly maybe taking a lead on running cornhole,
Yeah, that's the name I was thinking of.
something like that.
Obviously, I
a
should
great
be
opportunity.
running it.
But Will, I want two things, if you don't mind me getting into here. One, I think you should deal with me on that, okay, because I'm the director, so any correspondence and kids and stuff should go through my office. Two, just be aware that I don't want to say this in the wrong way, but I want to say it, that just handing a high school kid, young kids to supervise probably won't happen. They would be working with other adults. I mean, and I think like Tracy said, her oldest son helped coach youth basketball, but that son would never be put in a position of being in charge.
Yeah, I get that.
Right.
That's what he was saying.
Yeah, I think it's certainly, I think I would encourage you, Will, to reach out to Alan with, some either students that are willing to be involved with, or if you're going to talk with the head of the National Honor Society, you shoot an email, CC Alan on it, put him as a second email address on there, just to kind of connect everybody so that everybody can start talking, and maybe there are some volunteer coaches that would love the extra assistance. I'm sure that, just one example was Coach Jackie with the field hockey, tried to get her team involved with the coaches. So I think connecting that way can really make sure that gets facilitated. I think it's probably best through mostly the department, but I think this committee certainly supports that endeavor 100%.
Alan, what's the best next step for?
Well, I think, I don't know how you connect with students from Nauset that you think might be interested. So I don't know how you advertise this or how you get word out. But
Going through the National Honor Society, to start there.
But you do that through an honor society separate from Nauset High, or do you do
It's a
that
club
through
that's-
Nauset High?
It's a club that's part of high school, and it's for, I think, juniors and mostly seniors. So I know a few people on there, and I can get the email of the person who runs that, and I'll email them, CC you on there.
Why don't we do this? Let's get a small group of people interested, okay? And if need be, at some point, we could, in an appropriate time, I could sit down with them. And we could say, hey, look, this is how we'll start this off. We'll have a couple of people, and these are some activities that you could possibly join into. Obviously, the Family Day, maybe the after-school soccer program that we're going to run, maybe girls softball, helping some coaches, get involved with that. So perhaps you could get a group of people from Nauset, and have you be their liaison to me.
Yeah.
And then we can say, hey, look, how does it look for a meeting on this date? We could just kind of bring all these people together.
Well, the thing about the national, they've been vetted in a certain way.
Right.
And I think it might also be an incentive for freshmen and sophomores, another incentive to become a member of the National Honor Society. So I think it's brilliant that you start with that particular group. I was never a member of that group, but I think it's a wonderful thing.
And I mean, also too, Will, we certainly, I don't know how many students that are juniors and seniors at Nauset live in Orleans, but certainly we could reach outside of the Honor Society and have somebody from the, soccer team, which, all the kids know it's quite a program. We could have somebody from the soccer team who's going into their senior year, maybe, and, they could help with a Saturday morning soccer program, helping with the instructors. So that's certainly an option.
I was going to say, having one kid that was a National Honor Society and one that was not. The one that was not was more the sports kid. The one that was math and chess and all that, which was great, but very different skill sets. So, and I want every kid to feel wanted and that their skill sets are acknowledged. And so I'm just wondering whether or not, if you start with the Honor Society, but you can broaden it.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I think it's a good start.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying, is that I think it's a wonderful start.
Yeah,
Because
so,
they need the hours, right, as opposed to,
yeah, but if you just send me a list of, your demands, if you want someone from the soccer team or the softball team, I'll send out, doesn't have to be the National Honor Society, but I'll find people that are interested in this, because there are a lot of people that want to have community service hours for college.
Yeah.
So if all I need is a list
Great.
of the kind of people you need, and then the dates for when these events would happen, I'll get them in contact with you, and then we'll set up a meeting so you can interview and talk to all of them.
What year are you at Nauset? Did you say you're a sophomore?
I'm a sophomore, yeah, I'll be a junior next year.
So you're there for a while. We get you for a couple more years, right?
You're stuck now, Will.
Yep.
3-year terms, right? All right, thank you, and, Evan.
Yeah, I just wanted to publicly say thank you for coming out here. I think what you're doing is awesome. Coming out on a school night like this in the evening, meeting with a bunch of old people.
No problem, it's great to be here.
This is fantastic and has a lot of potential, so thank you.
And please continue to bring ideas.
I have to leave for my meeting. One
Okay.
question. Alan, for the June 4th, that's all of a sudden not so far away. Would you like a couple of us to meet with you on what help you need? Do you want to email all of us?
I'll reach out to some people. I mean, I know there's a couple that have already indicated to me that they're interested, so.
Okay. Since now, all of a sudden it's like,
Yeah,
all
hopefully. Okay,
right, I'll finish the rest of the notes.
all right, CPC.
Thanks, Joan.
Yes, thank you, Joan. CPC updates.
Oh, I might as well
Do
stay
you
for that.
want
2 seconds. A couple of updates, and
to, you've got time.
the bicycle racks are in, which is really nice. The storybook they're in. One was crushed by a tree already. There was some money left over during that storm, so they're gonna put another one up. 12 were put in. They're gonna find 2 more spots, but you'll see them around town. The Storybook Trail, Morgan's not here. It's in. I think they're doing a little maintenance on them, testing out some weather issues that happened, from what I heard from Steve. So that's what's happening there. We did get the funding, as Tracy knows, for the survey, which is the feasibility study, which is great. I did hear from Ron Collins, because I was on a meeting with him about the library, that he only got 1 bid again on the pickleball court, and he's having the hardest time getting bids for anything. So we're trying to get a bid for the roof. He got 1 bid for the library. Like, this is just a tough time, and he's really trying. So it's not as though he's not putting it out there. So anything we don't have bids on, it's because no one's submitting.
Is it not, are they not big enough? Like if we were doing.
There's just a lack of people doing projects. I mean, it's really, no, he just said, we normally get bids, but people are just busy for
Yeah.
Lots of other projects.
lots and lots of projects on their plates. And so, so that's what he had told me about the pickleball courts.
Okay.
Yeah, now I can go.
Okay. I'll just quickly, we did get CPC approval for the master plan. And I had a good meeting with the chair of the Orleans School Committee, and I'm presenting to that committee on Monday, or, presenting to the, I'm going to go and talk to them about what it looks like and ask for a liaison, ask for support and a liaison. But sort of digging into what the elementary school was dealing with, and they have just agreed to be part, or to have their property part of the fire station feasibility study. I thought it was interesting and kind of exciting. The principal, as part of that fire station feasibility study agreement, submitted a document with considerations for the elementary school as part of that project. And in addition to things like lighting in the parking lot and pathways and bike racks, she also has relocate the tennis courts and install an obstacle course for students and a multi-generational fitness circuit for the community, install a walking path around the perimeter of the property for school and community walking programs, design walking and biking pathways between OES, the fire station, Boland Pond, the middle school, and the library, public restrooms and hydration station, sponsor installation of outdoor classrooms, a natural playground, and a natural presentation area with bench seating. So when we talk about thinking big, someone is already thinking big, and I think a lot of the ideas, some of these ideas talk about the middle school property, and it sort of fits in really nicely with the idea of doing a master plan and bringing everyone to the table and figuring out, what's the best place for an obstacle course if we want one. If we're not going to have the tennis courts there, where on the 3 properties did the tennis courts go? So I think that's moving forward in a really nice direction. And I'm just happy to see these ideas getting advocated for. When we're talking about building these big buildings, it's nice to see that recreation in community spaces are going to be a part of the conversation. So that's that. Kyle, do you have a community center task force
Sure.
update?
So we are finally, I think, up and running. It's been a bit. We finally got a consultant on board. He met with us at our last meeting, so I'm looking for the list of people he met with. And we basically, Fritz Luff, the chair of the committee, got the consultant we're working with on a pretty heavy schedule of visits. Sorry, I'm downloading right now. He went to Snow's, Cultural History Society, the Rec Department, COA, OES, town offices, Old Firehouse. It looks like there was a drop-in potentially with middle school, Church of the Holy Spirit. I don't have a full update on everything that he met with. There's a lot of lists on here. in order to try to get just kind of start doing the meet and greet, and get an idea of, where people are having success, where they're meeting with some roadblocks, how they could fit into a community center, how we could fulfill some needs, and help other programs. We have a couple surveys that we're sending out to various facilities and organizations to try to get some feedback on who's in the community, what's here, what's going on. We have a meeting next week in which we'll get some reporting back, but then we're going to sounds like we're trying to go to two sessions a month. Big deep breath. But hopefully that will start, just ramping it up so we can get some sort of report back. I mean, what we're really looking at right now is just a general concept, right? We're not looking at specific land parcels, while we are trying to identify potential parcels, right, or areas in which the community center could fit or be most convenient or beneficial. I think what we really need to identify is what is the size that the town can support and sustain. How are we going to sustain that? What is it going to look like when it, as we come up with this concept? And then from there, we can take that concept and find places where we could drop it in town and see how it can fit. So, it's been a slow go until we got the consultant on board, and now it starts to feel like we're kind of picking up some paces. I think the task force was spinning our wheels a bit because we don't have the expertise. We're a bunch of volunteers. So hopefully we'll get some progress moving forward and see some positive updates and some good ideas.
Anne?
You.
Kyle, as you folks look at the big picture, are you looking out to the surrounding towns, especially the ones who are actively discussing community centers, to consider shared amenities and economies of scale?
So it's come up within the task force, the idea of, hey, Brewster's got something going on with the Sea Camps acquisition, and there's the tea time at Eastham, and they also bought that town square, I guess. We haven't made it a directive of our consultant at this point. I think what we're trying to assess is the town of Orleans itself as to what do we currently offer, how could we support those offerings, how could those offerings support a community center, are there impediments to growth, all those kind of really, wouldn't say tricky, but minutia kind of details before we kind of expand out. But I think the reality of it, right, is that a community center physical building is probably a ways off. So we need to get at least the idea on the table while keeping an open mind as to what's happening around us. We're not actively reaching out, though. I would say that's probably pretty definitive, that we're not actively reaching out to neighboring towns, other than for maybe ideas like Harwich or Chatham.
Yeah, but I think that's part of the bigger picture. Yeah.
And I met with them yesterday.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did the OES portion of the tour, and I think the consultant hadn't had lunch. They really zipped around all day to get everything in. But it was interesting. The questions were sort of, what's working with the current space, what isn't working. The fields came up a few times because those are such a big deal for the after-school program, and so thinking about building a community center or repurposing a building as a community center, you need some place for kids to run around if there's going to be an after-school program there. And I had something else, but so anyway, I know the other thing was thinking about programs that can share spaces if they have dedicated storage, that's, or a small dedicated space, but then share bigger spaces like gyms. So I think that's sort of what they're trying to iron out now. Anything else on that? Okay. Unmet needs. This came up, unmet needs has come up a few times in conversations, and so I wanted to assign a place in the agenda each month for unmet needs, just so we have a documented list going for the select board as far as what we're looking at. So I just wanted to quickly address, and there were a few things posted, but just do you want to explain the chain of emails? Sharon, is that
Oh, for
the best? Yeah,
Basketball?
just so, and again, the idea is just to get this
Right,
documented.
right. So it's, yeah, just the idea that, and you could chime in on this too, actually, that during the winter months, that if you don't make a team, like the basketball team, which is fairly competitive to make at the high school level, that there are kids who still want to play basketball. And there isn't anything at the high school level for them to do. So you have January, February, March, where there's no sport. If you don't make a team, there's no intramurals happening. So the idea was that perhaps the rec departments, or maybe the rec departments with the high school together, could work together to have some sort of intramural sports program for kids who just want to be physically active and, you know, maybe play basketball once or twice a week, or volleyball, or something in a gym, but doesn't want to make the time commitment of a 6-day or 5-day-a-week practice schedule. Because I know that from having spoken to the recreation director, or not recreation director, the athletic director at the high school, and some of the coaching staff, as well as teachers and school counselors, that there does seem to be a need, and some of these kids show up for the first day of tryout, and then they're so overwhelmed by how many other kids that they see that they don't come back. And then they hear from the coaches that, well, we're going to have practice 2 hours or 2.5 hours every day after school, and that's a lot with what the homework schedule is like at the high school, especially if you're taking honors and AP classes and all of those things. So that was the idea. And the emails and the conversations that we had were fairly positive and supportive that there is this need at that level. I think collaborating with the actual high school is a way to hook in the kids, because I think if the communication isn't clear, that it can be a little bit nebulous, and they're like, oh, well, I don't want to do rec, that's for little kids. You know, there's that mindset that rec ends in 6th grade, and you move on from there after that, because there just hasn't been a lot of offerings in the last few years for anybody after 8th grade.
So what I noticed just in the emails was especially the Kevin Harrigan, who runs the Sims Basketball Academy, and would love to try to help. So I know that right now rec isn't in a position because of staffing to pursue this, but I did want to kind of pin that name for someone to reach out to in the future when we get to a place where, maybe someone, this guy or someone like him could run something on Saturday nights at the middle school, or Sunday mornings or something like that. But I think it's important for us to sort of keep tabs on these potential partners. Maybe Harwich has a great program, a great futsal program run with the police department. So again, sort of seeking out partners and getting things going when we have enthusiastic people around who want to see them happen.
So, I guess a couple things that just on this point, I mean, I saw the email chain, and I was just concerned, because I know we talked about this intramural basketball at the last meeting, and Alan had, I thought, reached out as the committee had requested, and there really didn't appear to be a need from what he was hearing. There might be a hidden need. There's a lot of different things that aren't presenting, if they're not given the opportunity to present themselves. So I would echo the sentiment. When the rec department can get up to more staffing levels to kind of explore these options, would certainly be something that should be on kind of the back burner of ideas, but I also think that the committee can do a little bit more if we want to present ideas of intramural type sports or things. I think we need to take the responsibility of backing ourselves up. Because from what I'm seeing in the emails, it looked like there were 16 kids at the high school level that either didn't make a team or chose not to play. And when you look at trying to put together an intramural sports league with 16 kids that had expressed an interest to play and either didn't make the team or when you have barely 2 teams. And I don't know that it's worth any of the rec department's efforts to kind of figure that out. But if there's a way for the rec advisory committee to find a path towards seeing what the real need is and then supporting that, I think that can be something where we might be able to accomplish something, or encouraging people like Kevin Harrington to explore setting up a more local kind of program if he's just doing a skills program. Because I'm sure, so like I know, just anecdotally, I know a colleague of mine who side hustles doing basketball skills, and he takes on a couple of like private clients and helps them through the process. He's also involved with the JV coach, JV team. But we can, without having to go through necessarily a rec department, we can help kind of encourage those things by offering whatever tools we have to the people that are interested in doing that. So, I mean, I don't want to necessarily discourage talking about this, but I think we've never really talked in real numbers about is it worth the time and effort?
Right.
And if we can find a way as a committee to justify some of these offerings, or, you know, partnering, figuring out, I don't know how to do it, but figuring out something to, in that vein, it might be a more beneficial conversation as opposed to just kind of throwing out some ideas and seeing what sticks on the wall with the limited resources we have.
Right, and I agree with you, the numbers would be an issue for something like a big intramural, although I guess the rec departments did have basketball leagues for high school. at
But,
some
you
point.
see, I think you're not looking at it big enough, and I hate to say this, because I have a couple of questions. You could have town leagues of kids who don't play varsity. Maybe P-Town couldn't field the thing, but I'm sure every town from 6th to 12th grade has 10 to 15 kids.
But we don't know. We have 16 kids in basketball.
You interrupt me every time. Let me just talk, because each town would have that, and then you have more gyms to use. And so it's not just Orleans. I think it's collaboration with other towns that we can form these things for the kids to have fun. That's, and okay, I've been on this for 4 months. All I've heard is we can't do anything until he gets 40 hours or until we get an assistant. Well, okay, it's been 4 months. We need to move forward somehow. And how are we going to do that? When is this going to be concluded? I'm frustrated by it, because I don't see this committee going this way. I see this committee, and again, short term, just going this way.
Well, so, one, we're an advisory committee, and all we do is offer advice to the Board of Select. We don't offer advice to Alan. We don't offer advice to John Kelly or Tom Daly.
I'm not offering, I'm
Well,
saying
hold on,
what
hold on. I'm
opportunities.
just talking about what our charge is. Our charge is to offer advice, and we can offer advice about how to make more robust recreation programs. What I am suggesting is that we haven't done the work to justify some of the recommendations that we've talked about. I am not saying that we couldn't have a robust intramural basketball league within the region, but if we look at the emails, the region has indicated that there were 16 players that expressed some interest in basketball, but either didn't make the team or didn't follow through with the team. And in the region, 16 players is not an intramural league. There are opportunities for us to maybe take that region of 16 players and partner with Chatham and Harwich and Dennis and Yarmouth and find that out. I don't think it's fair to, one, make that recommendation without having done our due diligence of looking at that as an opportunity, and I don't think it's certainly fair to say to Alan, which we don't have really the say to do anyways, but figure this out and make this
I
work.
didn't say that.
Well, but
I didn't say that.
I understand that. What I'm trying to express is that we are an advisory committee. And if we're going to make.
Please
So-
don't lecture me, I understand that. I'm just saying how I feel as a relatively new member, and I don't know what to do as a new member except give ideas that I think are helpful, and that's all I can do. But I don't see any movement, Kyle. Do you see it?
You might not see movement for a little, like, I
It's,
think.
I mean, it's a
it-
very slow process.
Yeah. And that's, I'm going to let Ann chime in. I think the frustration that you're feeling is something probably most committee members dip into
I don't
from
know.
time
I
to
mean,
time.
I just,
And then, rebound and then maybe dip in again. It's a real, this is a journey. And we're, that's why we looked at the charge. The journey continues. But so I hear your frustration, and I would just ask you to stick with us and keep working through the frustration. And what did you want to add?
I just wanted to change the tone a little bit and take us back to when Judy Wilson spoke with us. And she talked about ways that she developed programs, introduced programs, maintained or abandoned programs. And it was really organic. It was partly based on numbers, but I think I would, it was based on idea and listening to the community and having an exciting person that she said, let's give this a go and see how it happens, and then paid attention to the numbers. Kyle, I have a mild objection to getting numbers before we try something, because it really turns into almost like asking a consultant to borrow our watch and tell us what time it is. I think we need to, also that Sharon quite nicely talked about, this is not people who want to be on a team that didn't make it. It's what the nature of intramural sports is, and that, maybe there's, this gentleman who's showed some interest, and there's clearly some motivated people who wrote a lot of emails. I guess, isn't there a way, and this has been our challenge, once we have ideas, what to do with them? If they're not something we go through CPC, and it's not something that Alan's focused on at the moment, do we have the opportunity to say, gee, our committee thinks it's worth a go. How can we help get it started? And I don't know. That's been our frustration, or at least mine, is that ideas end up floating in a vacuum because we don't, unless it's through CPC, we don't have a way to allow them to take shape and happen. But I think there's a groundswell of interest. It's come several times before that this is a population of kids that aren't served. And so I think it's a good idea. Now what is my thought? What do we do with good ideas?
Yeah, I think, and I'm going to get to Alan and then Kyle. I think the other thing is, based on what Mev said, it might be a while before we are dealing with a fully.
no, and I'm not asking Alan to do that. I'm just suggesting
No,
that
but-
to get all the people
Go ahead,
together,
Alan.
and you could.
Well,
do
so let me give you a couple of comments here. One, I'm going to go back in a little bit of time, in that when COVID hit, all you know this because I've said this before, when COVID hit and schools were shutting down their athletic programs, the Nauset Middle School athletic director reached out to all the rec departments and asked if we could run, this is in the fall of 2021, let me finish, in the fall of, could we do something for kids? Because they can't run an athletic program. So Orleans Recreation jumped in and we did a cross-country program which had, I'd say, 17 to 20 kids. We had a soccer program in the afternoon which took in 20 kids, and we were already doing after-school, middle school tennis. My thought is this, and I know people will think this is Mr. Negative coming along, but if Mr., what's the gentleman's name that sent the email, Harrington? Or
Harrigan?
Harrigan from Nauset High? If he's so excited about it, then why doesn't he spearhead it? And why doesn't he send an email to the rec director in Orleans? And why doesn't he send an email to the recreation director in Brewster, and to the recreation director in Eastham, and to the recreation director in Wellfleet? And why doesn't he spearhead this and ask us for our input, rather than a committee that we already know what some of the frustrations are in terms of manpower in a town, and dispute something that in all likelihood is not going to happen if the rec department in any of these towns is charged with spearheading this. If it's an intramural program for students that attend Nauset High School, then people from Nauset High School should spearhead it, not the rec director from Eastham or Orleans or anywhere else. What that person should do, similar to what the athletic director at Nauset Middle School did a year and a half ago, this is my thing, where can I get some help? And if Mr. Harrigan wants help, he should spearhead it and reach out to the rec departments to see where they stand individually. Maybe Orleans would say, yeah, we can offer some help. Maybe another town may say, no, we can't. But to me, sitting in a committee in which that committee cannot influence Eastham or Brewster or Wellfleet is pointless.
Kyle?
I was not going to go there, but I kind of agree with the sentiment of an intramural regional league would, I think, be a lot easier to spearhead from the regional's perspective, which would clearly be Nauset region, and reaching out to people that are tapped into the local towns that are within the region. That makes sense to me. What I would also just point to, and Chad, I'm sorry, I'm a lawyer, and I do argument for a living, and I get carried away sometimes. I'm not trying to argue with you or lecture you.
I come from a family of attorneys, I'm quite used to it.
But I'm not trying, that's not what I'm trying to do. What I'm trying to do
You come
is,
off that way, so.
what I'm trying to express, though, is that, like, we have a charge that the town has given us, and but if you look at the rec director's report that he sent out this week, at the very end of that report, there are a list of different things that are going to get done if he gets 40 hours. And there are another list of things that are going to get done if we get an assistant rec
And
director.
Kyle, I asked you, how many more months are we going to be talking about that?
So the point, the reason I bring that up is, one, I think a lot of us have been here going on 2, almost 3 years, and we've seen some progress, and we have seen some non-progress. But if you really want to see progress, Alan's report about adding the hours and adding an assistant is where you're going to see the progress. And where we're hampered is that town meeting, and the town runs on a fiscal year budget. So we have to take the responsibility of going to the Board of Select and saying, as opposed to what they told us today, is that we're not going to support 40 hours. We're not going to support hiring a new staff member. We want to do an organizational review. So now the town wants to delay yet for another fiscal year, improving the rec department, because they want to go in and do an organizational review of the rec department or DPW or whatever it is. I was unclear exactly
The
what they
rec
were looking at.
department.
And to me, you've just set the rec department back yet another year. Alan has laid out very effectively all of the goals that he can meet from what this committee has asked if we support two things, and the Board of Select is not supporting those two things. And that's partly a failure on us to not support those two things more effectively. And if you want to see progress, it takes time, it's a long slog, but that was the missed opportunity, right there.
I look at that differently, and you know, we'll see what happens. I think the organizational study, you know, I agree with you that it sets things back. But I think bigger picture, figuring out what, you know, based on what the community needs, what is the structure of a department that's going to meet those needs? Isn't important first. Like, I think the feeling from the select board, at least from when I watched last night, was that there's not the expertise to manage the revolving fund and grow the department and do these community connections. We're not structurally in a place to do that. So let's figure that out before we start writing these job descriptions for a full-time and a part-time position. And I think using the community coordinator fund, you know, budget line item to get some extra hours in for the summer was an attempt to make sure that programming can still grow in the short term. But I am appreciative of the select board trying to take a step back and do this methodically and carefully and the right way. Evan?
I think there's a lot of value in a lot of what we're talking about here. I have been equally frustrated at extremely slow progress as well. I think there's value in identifying the things that we want to see happen, and there's no shortage of a list of things we've come up with. The challenge, as we're identifying, is resources to do those things. So I think there's value in us continuing to foot stomp the sticky message to the people who are in positions of authority of, we want a full-time rec director, we need an additional person, just look at the towns around. So all of these good ideas we have are going to require champions, right? Folks who want to see things happen, whether it's us or other people, are going to have to step up to do a lot of the logistical coordinating, because sometimes I think even I myself have had an unrealistic expectation of what can one human being accomplish by themselves in X number of hours in a week. So
Well, let me ask you this, and I don't want to extend the conversation at all, but we live in a relatively small area. And when I think about this, why does Orleans, and why does Brewster, and why does Harwich, and why does Eastham all have, and I'm not trying to lose anybody's job, recreation directors? Why couldn't there be a regional recreation director, for example, when there are more opportunities and spaces? You see, if you talk about saving money, and if you're talking about efficiencies, and really, I'm not after anybody's job.
I understand, I understand.
You know, Cape Cod has, what, 250,000 full-time people, so you take 3 or 4 of these towns, and you regionalize it. And I know an answer is because we've never done it that way, okay, but that's not a good answer to me, and I don't think that should be a good answer for anybody.
never is.
No,
But
you
I
make a
bet the
valid-
Board of Select people, they're not looking at that. And I'm not asking you
I
to
know
do
they're
anything.
not.
I know. I'm not asking you to do
Whoa.
anything.
No,
If
I
you want
agree
me to
with you.
ask people, I'll be happy to do
I
that,
agree
but I
with
had
you.
to hear from you.
We have a,
I just don't, it's inefficient.
Right.
I know that probably nobody here agrees with me, but I'm going to say this for the Board of Select. We're doing a organizational study of a one-man department. I don't think we need to take any time to understand, there's one guy and he's doing all of this.
We need more people.
Like that, I'm sorry, that to me, and it's from the very beginning of this committee, the frustration of the Board of Select not listening to things that we're saying. And I'm not speaking right now for the committee, I'm being very clear about that, but I know that we've sent to the Board of Select issues about the revolving fund that were misunderstood and almost not supported. We've sent messages about the budget and the staffing levels that were also not followed through. And we've sent it yet again. And the response back is we need to do a study of a one-man department to determine how to best expand that department. It's crazy, waste of time, and
They're just putting us.
really all I got to say about that. I heard Mef say at the beginning, I didn't see the meeting, I don't necessarily know the thinking behind it. All I know is you have a one-man department, it can't be that difficult to figure out that you can make a better department with more man-hours.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think, well, with a large portion of, I think maybe what they could be considering is we have talked, it has come up whether DPW is the right place for rec. So when you talk about structure, are we looking at something like, you know, the community center task force is moving ahead? Or maybe this study ends up producing, you know, a vision of a rec department that falls under the umbrella of a Department of Community Life. You know what I mean? Like, maybe that's where we're going. I think we have continued to go to the select board with concerns.
Oh, yeah.
And that this is their response, and while it might, I mean, I guess I'm being a little bit of a Pollyanna, while it might look like it is a short-term setback, my hope is that it is putting the department in a position to move forward. I will.
I have to go.
Yes, please.
Great being here.
Thank you so much for being here, Will. We'll
Stayed
talk to
way
you
longer
soon.
than you.
Yes.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, did anyone have anything else? And then,
I'm done.
Go ahead, Evan.
I just wish that we would not allow the desire for this a mythical perfect plan or perfect structure to get in the way of a good enough plan, which would be hire another person so we can do more stuff. You know, like, it's just
I
kind of.
agree
a
with you,
myth,
except that good enough is what we've been doing for the past 3 years, and boom, boom. You know what I mean? So like, is there something one step better than good enough?
Yeah, another staff person.
Another
40
person,
hours
I
for
think,
the
will just
director.
provide a lot of time to potentially say, hey, I will go and do some research into the feasibility of conducting some basketball.
Right.
Because why? Because you have 40 extra hours for someone to do that
Right.
work, right? I mean,
35.
Well, maybe
yeah.
not
Or-
though, if the thinking is that should be coming from the high school, not from the rec department.
Well, but if you put, just hypothetically, and we're kind of getting slightly off task, but
Right.
hypothetically, talking about organizational chart of moving rec out of DPW under some unforeseen,
And again, I don't know that that's
undefined,
what this is.
right, just hypothetically, right?
Tracy.
Cultural or whatever,
typical?
community life, I think that gets away from
Well,
rec. I mean, look, you gotta take steps, and we're not taking any steps, and we haven't taken any steps in growing this department, and I get it, we've had frustrations, I understand that but, you know, I think what I've taken away from a lot of the frustrations and a different tactic that I've brought to this committee is actually sitting down and talking to Alan and listening to what Alan has to say, and trying to see the department from his perspective as the guy running the show, as opposed to a committee member who has a pie-in-the-sky dream of what I would love to see. And I'm not saying that the pie-in-the-sky dream isn't something we should strive towards, but we have to look at the reality of the situation, and the reality of the situation is we have one guy expected to run adult and youth fitness for all ages, and it's just not feasible within 70 hours worth of his work. What we're asking for is to get us to 80 hours with 2 people that can actually split the task, and I just don't understand why the Board of Select has taken this path. I wish that we could have at least taken the baby step of getting some more hours to the department, as opposed to putting it again on the back burner for another fiscal year.
Alan?
Well, I would have said, or I will say, that based on what people have said, that it would, you know, let me put a thought here first. One, no disrespect to anybody here, but I don't think anybody knows what I do on a day-to-day basis. If somebody wants to trail me for a day and hang out with me and see what I do and see how many phone calls and how many emails and how many times they come to town hall and how many times they have meetings and how many programs I run, let me know when you want to do it. I'll welcome you in, and you'll see exactly what I do on a day-to-day basis, and why it's difficult to run programs and continue to grow. And I have said I'm willing. Tom and I put a document together, which we sent to the town administrator, to the select board, and to this committee, of if Alan gets hours, if we get an assistant, this is what will happen. These are the things that will happen, which in a lot of that was new activities. My feeling is, and I don't know whether this is the feeling of anybody on this committee, but if you feel that strongly, then write a letter to John Kelly and write a letter to the Select Board and saying, we understand the decision you made last night, we don't support it, we need you to rethink that.
Should we do that? Should we do that as a committee,
Well,
as individuals? Or do we want to do it?
I'd vote for it as a committee. We have
And then-
6 members
Second.
here.
You vote for as a committee?
I would move that we write a letter of support for the additional hours that we've previously advocated for.
I would second
And that
that.
we're disappointed with the Board of Select's decision to back burner that process.
Yeah, I think I heard a second from Ann as well.
Dan, you second that?
Second.
Discussion. I mean, I'm not voting in favor of that. I think that my feeling is that the organizational study is an attempt to address some of the concerns that have been expressed.
But
About
would you
the
go
way
along
that
with
the-
that we were disappointed by that decision and word it in a way that, we're not in your face, but, we've been at this for quite a while, and
That we concur that studying the organization is a worthwhile endeavor, but not at the expense of not pushing forward with hiring an extra person, right? Because we have a tremendous list of all the things we want done. So to me, like, just in that one document is our reasoning for why another human being is needed to come in to work and do some of these things. And then also, like, yes, and continue to study the organizational structure, and if you want to realign, you're realigning 2 people instead of 1 person, which, let's face it, not a big deal. Realigning two
I don't know that the-
people somewhere else under, I just don't see that as a very heavy lift.
Anne?
I totally agree. It can be both and. What we object to is not following through with our request for additional time. Don't object to assessing, although I kind of do object to the pattern in the town of when there's a problem, an outside consultant comes in and spends time looking at it, but that's a different issue. What objecting to is that somebody feels that this needs to be done before we can add hours. And we need to add hours. Joan had asked for deliverables, and Alan has produced deliverables. So I would like to follow through and say, we as a committee have requested it. We sat here when Nate Sears, part of the administration and the supervisor, told us that the department was broken, the committee was broken, we're all broken, let's just get Alan help. I didn't agree with how the message was delivered, but everybody involved has asked for this, and for the select board to apparently, and I think it's a little dangerous because none of us are speaking from seeing that meeting. But apparently, the request for additional recreation staff was put aside in favor of this. I think we should be careful. Maybe we are misunderstanding. Maybe it wasn't put aside.
I mean,
But
yeah, I mean, I only watched the video. I didn't talk to anyone. Well, I talked to Meth right before the meeting, but, you know, from what I saw at the meeting, there was concern expressed about the vote that the committee took, you know, to support 2 full-time positions, and the thinking was, that using that community coordinator position to get in, a part-time person that they could do, that's already in the budget, so they could do that tomorrow. You wouldn't have to wait until July 1st to do that. That would go a ways towards not holding things back. So I'm comfortable with it, but, you know, if someone wants to, well, I think someone did make a motion, so whatever the committee wants to do, is there any more discussion? You know, I don't know if there's a misunderstanding because no one is here from the select board right now to
I mean,
clarify anything.
but Matt said that they're tabling growing the department for an organizational study. That was part of his public speak. I think that's what the motion addressed. I'd like to call the question.
Okay. All in can you just, well, Joan will write it down tomorrow. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all opposed? Okay, so that's 4-2. Okay,
Can I recommend that Kyle write that letter?
I think Joan has to take it from the minutes as to what the motion was, and then pass it to the select board with the vote. And,
Oh, I see. Before writing the letter.
right, so so the motion was, right?
the motion.
What the motion was basically support the request that we've made and express the disappointment with the tabling. I think that gets it across.
yes.
Okay, future agenda items. Okay, all right, then I will look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second? I'll second it, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.